welcome to another episode of HealthETalks. Today we are honored to be with the lovely Roshni, who's the project manager at the South African Depression and Anxiety Group. Hi Roshni, how are you doing?
Hi, Julia. I'm doing very well, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. As we mentioned, it was World Suicide Prevention Day this week, and we are still trying to spread some awareness around it. So I'm hoping that this podcast can just show a little bit more insights to our audience as to what goes on in your day to day.
Wonderful.
So, can you tell us about the significance of World Suicide Prevention Day and the positive steps that can be taken year round to raise awareness?
So, on the mental health calendar, we have World Suicide Prevention Month, we have World Suicide Prevention Day. There are all these mental health days on the calendar. And the reason that we have them is to highlight the issues that we are having in terms of mental illness in South Africa, but also around the world. But it's also just another way for us to destigmatize mental illness and to talk about it and open up those communication lines. And so at the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, when we were chatting earlier, I said to you, I said, every single day is Teen Suicide or World Suicide Prevention Day, because
Yes.
every day is a day that we should be trying to prevent these suicides. But the significance of it is that we get people talking. So when you highlight it on a specific day, you get people talking, not just for that day, but like we are doing now, it goes on for the week, for the month. And so, yeah, it's just a nice way to create awareness.
That's great. Every day is Suicide Awareness Day. It's just getting more awareness out there. And
Yes.
tell me, what are some of the practical everyday ways people can support loved ones who may be experiencing suicidal thoughts?
The most practical way, and it's going to sound so simplistic, but it's really honestly what we would advocate is speak about it, open those communication lines, ask the questions. Often we are so scared to ask someone, are you thinking of hurting yourself? Because
Mm-hmm.
there's this myth that surrounds us that if you speak about suicide, you're giving someone the idea that it's an option. And that's not true. The reality is that if someone is feeling that depressed and that suicidal, by us saying, are you thinking of hurting yourself? Suddenly they feel as if they have someone to speak to. They feel as if someone sees me, someone sees that I'm struggling.
Mm.
And it's easier for them to talk about it or open up about it. But even for them to say, okay, it's okay for me to feel like this way, feel this way, and there is help. So I think number one, the most important thing is be supportive, create that
Yes.
supportive environment. Don't be judgmental. Allow them to say what they want to say. But as a family member, we're so afraid that if we ask that question, what if we don't know what the answer is?
Mm.
And it's so important to know that you're not supposed to know what the answer is, especially if you have never felt suicidal or you have never felt depressed. Chances are you won't know what the right answer is. But the fact that this person has opened up to you means that they just need someone to walk the journey with them. And often all you really need to know is that the South African Depression and Anxiety Group exists. The 0800 567 567 toll-free crisis line number exists. That the website with all the resources exists. And so as a family member or a loved one, if you don't know the answers, it's okay. That's what we are here for. We're here to help you.
Just to open that line of communication is so vital when it comes to it.
Absolutely, because Julie, we often say that if I have another illness, let's say it's diabetes or
Mm.
even the flu, I can walk into a room and say, oh, I have such a bad flu, not feeling great today, or just been diagnosed with diabetes, not feeling great today. But as someone who has a mental illness, it's not so easy for someone to come in and say, oh, feeling a bit depressed today, not feeling great, or just had a panic attack, not feeling great, because we are so scared that we are going to be judged. And the reason for that is the stigma that has been created for the longest time. This year we celebrate our 30th anniversary
Oh,
as
wow.
SADAG. And I was around 24 years ago when SADAG was just 6 years old. And we saw what mental illness and mental health awareness was like 24 years ago, even 30 years ago.
Mm.
And we have come a long way. We have been able to speak about it more. Just by having these podcasts, these things weren't something that you could speak about before. And just being able to speak about it shows that we've come a long way in destigmatizing mental illness. And yes, we've got a long way to go, but it can be done.
Definitely, like you say, we still have a long way to go, but I do believe that as of today, of like today's society, mental health is so much more prominent. It's not that big of a stigma anymore. Like everyone's more open to talk about, especially of the younger generation.
Totally. And why are they more open to talk about it? And that's because, especially just pre COVID and post COVID and during COVID, so many people realize that depression is a real thing,
Mm,
anxiety is a real thing. I'm isolated with just these people for this amount of time. And there were so many people that understood that mental illness is real. And so post COVID, it's become a conversation topic, it's become a conversation starter. It's become, there are people that say, I've been through a journey and I got help and I'm doing so much better now and I want to tell others, because for the longest time, nobody realized that there is treatment and you can live a productive life with something like depression or anxiety. And so, post COVID, a lot of people are understanding that mental illness is a real illness and it's not a
yes.
disease and it's not something to be ashamed of.
Definitely isn't something to be ashamed of. We all go through it, so why hide it? Just rather come together.
Absolutely, create that support system. And with a mental illness, the support system is the most important thing. When we started 30 years ago, we started because our founder, it took her months and months to find the right help for anxiety. And she said to herself, she says, I'm a white lady living in the middle of Santon. I have a car. I can afford treatment. What is happening to those people that don't have that
Hmm.
support? They don't have the means to get that help. And we started off as a little support group. And currently, we have so many support groups that we run nationwide. Our lines, we have 30 plus lines.
Oh,
We
wow.
have counselors that can answer those lines 24/7. And so the need for that support is so large, and we understand that. But I think what's also important to remember is that not all of us have that support in our immediate vicinity. So while some people may have an aunt or an uncle or a mom, a dad, a best friend to speak to, a lot of people don't have that. And so, we take up to 3,000 calls a day at our call center. And if you think about it, that's about 3,000 people that would much rather speak to a stranger about what they are going through. And they obviously don't feel like anybody else would understand that.
Yes.
But sometimes I just think we need to give people the benefit of the doubt that they may understand it and they may be supportive. But a support system is a really huge help when it comes to dealing with the mental illness.
No, it definitely is. And talking about being supportive and coming together, how can communities come together to create that safe space for open conversations about mental health and suicide prevention?
So we need to start treating mental illness as an illness and not a disease. So when you've got someone coming up to you saying, I'm thinking of hurting myself, instead of running around frantically or even judging someone, sit down, be the calm in their storm, and reach out to SADAG if you don't know what the answer is. But I think
Mm,
most importantly, it's allowing people to understand that your feelings are valid. You are okay. It's okay for you to feel this way. Um, but we will support you. And also opening up the conversation that just because you have a mental illness doesn't mean you have to be admitted into a psychiatric hospital or you
mm.
have to be on medication for the rest of your life. Some of us may just need a support group. Some of us may just need a psychologist. Some of us may need medication. There are so many different treatments for what you may be experiencing. And it's important to explore those different treatment options. And you can't do that alone because it feels so overwhelming. And so when it comes to community support and, family and loved ones, the support of all those people, it's important to remember that there's so many different options and we all need to do our research. If you are diagnosed with a new illness that you don't know anything about, what's the first thing you do?
Mm.
You go and you do all of your research.
That's
And it's
right.
the same thing. It's the same thing with the mental illness. Log on to www.sedec.org. All of the information is there. Read up about it. If there's something that you are not certain about, call us and speak to us and let us guide you.
And during your time at this group and in your lifetime, what are some of the success stories or inspiring moments where early intervention helped save a life?
So I am the project manager for the school outreach project, where we go into high schools, and especially in townships, and speak to the kids about mental illness and mental health awareness and suicide prevention. And Julie, we've had cases where we've been counseling a child who suddenly seems to be falling asleep, and it turns out that she's just taken medication or overdosed on pills earlier that morning. And we were able to get her into a ambulance and get her home, and get her help. Um, but especially in our schools, we've been able to see, and not just in our schools. I mean, Julie, we've had calls come in through us where people have said, I'm going to do it. I am convinced I'm going to do it, but this was my last ditch attempt at trying to not do it.
Mm.
And you'll sit there and you will counsel them. And eventually before they put the phone down, they'll say to you, okay, I'm going to try because I see that there is hope. And so I think the main goal and aim of SADAG is to give that hope, to someone that feels very hopeless. But the one thing someone doesn't remember when they reach out to SADAG or reach out to anyone for help is that you are actually saying to yourself, I deserve a second chance. I
Yes.
deserve to feel better. And in that way, you've already started the ball rolling to get yourself that help. And we've had so many success stories where people come to us and say, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have been okay. We've got psychologists who called us in because they were going through OCD or struggling with OCD, and they reached out to SADAG. And they were very young at the time. And then eventually they realized, okay, this is what I want to do. I also want to pay it forward. I also want to help people. And so I think majority of the time we do a lot of work on the ground, and we see it firsthand where, you see someone that you've saved, or you see the hope suddenly enter their face or their eyes where previously there was nothing. And so
Mm.
there are so many success stories. And I think that's one of the reasons why 30 years later we are still around, because people feel that need to have someone to speak to. Um, we realize that someone might be going through maybe anxiety in the workplace,
Yes.
and they are struggling to reach out. And now the last thing you want to do is pick up that phone and speak to a counselor with all your colleagues around you. So we launched a WhatsApp line. So instead of having to speak to us, chat to us, and we
Mm.
can help you in the situation. So what we do at the South African Depression and Anxiety Group is that we see a problem, we identify a problem, and then we try and find out, okay, what's the solution to that? So we have containers in Ivory Park and Diepsloot, for example, where people can go and get counseling. We have our wellness days. We have our university helplines where university students can reach out to us when they are struggling. We have our support groups. During this time of the year, we focus very heavily on our matriculants who are going through so much. And so we've started a matriculant support group where every Wednesday at 6 o'clock, they can join in and speak about what's stressing them out. Every Tuesday, we do an Instagram live for the matriculants, and we identify topics at the schools that they want to discuss. Whether that is, I knew all my work before the exam, I got to the exam and I blanked out. And because I blanked out, I started becoming anxious. And because I was anxious, I couldn't remember anything else. And it's just, and so it's different topics that we pick up that they want to speak about, and we address those topics. And by talking about it, we are educating people, we are advocating for mental wellness, and we are making people understand that it's okay to speak about it.
And it's okay not to be okay. I think that's also something that people need to understand. If you're not feeling fine, it's okay. Just open that line of communication.
Absolutely, it's okay to not be okay. And it's also okay to realize that you're not the only one going through that. Because when you speak about it, you are actually opening up a space for others to speak about it. So whether that's in school or whether that is at the workplace, by saying, I just had my first panic attack, somebody listens to you and says, really? I had one and I didn't want to speak about it. And in that way, you're creating your own little support system as well. You know, and support again is the biggest um, part of recovery when it comes to mental wellness, is having someone say to you, it's okay to not be okay. You're allowed to feel the way you are feeling, but you also are not allowed to sit in those feelings. We're going to have to
Yes.
do something about it. So I'm going to allow you to feel this way, but then you are also going to have to tell me, what are we going to do to feel better?
Enjoying this episode? Ever thought of starting your own podcast? Podup.com is your go-to. They've got everything you need to run a pro show, including 35 or more AI-powered tools for success. Sign up today for a free starter account and get 15% off with the code HealthETalks15. The code is HealthETalks15. Plus, check out podallies.com for a done-for-you podcasting experience, complete with website, social media, and editing. Start now and let's launch your podcast together.
So besides some of the initiatives like the WhatsApp group that you have, WhatsApp line that you have, what other programs or initiatives by the group do you have that equip individuals with tools for resilience and hope?
So we do employee assistance workshops. We do our wellness days where we go in and speak to people about mental health, or even just, often when we do our wellness days, someone will see a counselor and just start speaking about it. And in that way, they've been able to just get everything off their chest. We do our school outreach project called Suicide Shouldn't Be a Secret, where we speak to students, and we don't do that in assemblies. We do it class by class and grade by grade. So we have a huge team that goes out into the schools and speaks to these kids. We're there for a whole day. But not only do we speak to the kids, we speak to the educators as well. And when we are speaking to the kids and the educators, what we are finding is that they say, okay, fine, you're telling us. But when they go home, the problem still persists. So speak to the parents. So we do parent and community workshops. We speak to the learner support agents. So when it comes to the programs that we offer, Julie, it's not just, okay, we just speak to the kids. We've come into the school and now it's done. What happens after the school, it's over and done with. We make sure that it's a holistic program where we are tackling everyone in the community. So if, for example, we go into a community and we see that the police station is quite nearby, we then send a few counselors to the police station to speak to the police officers, to speak to people that may be sitting in the police station. If there's a clinic or a hospital nearby, we then go and address that group of people. And so it's about getting the word across that mental illness is a real thing. A lot of people are going through it. And the only way we are all going to start feeling better is if we support each other.
That's amazing. And can you share some tips on how to identify early warning signs of depression or suicidal thoughts in a way that encourages positive action and support in case someone is listening to this and they might have someone in mind?
Absolutely. So in terms of depression, you have to look for a change in their behavior. So for example, if someone is eating too much or eating too little, sleeping too much or sleeping too little, that would be a change in their behavior. If I am someone that loves to eat and I'm still eating a lot, that doesn't mean I'm depressed. However, if I'm someone that loves to eat and suddenly I'm losing weight, I have no appetite, then that might be a sign that I might be struggling with depression. And these are things that you would notice every single day for 2 weeks or longer. If they're crying a lot, if they are withdrawing, if they suddenly stop doing the things they used to enjoy doing, that would be a sign. In terms of suicide, depression that is left unrecognized and untreated could lead to someone feeling suicidal. So in terms of suicide, if you know someone that has been depressed and has not gotten the help and is now suddenly looking very down, is suddenly saying things like, oh, I wish I wasn't here anymore. The world would be better off without me. If they are making plans for when they are not here. So, for example, if they're giving away their favorite things and you ask them, but that's your favorite thing. Why are you giving it to me? Well, I'm not going to need it anymore. And often when someone gives us something, we get so excited. And in the moment, we're like, that's so sweet of you. Thank you so much. When the reality is we should be asking, but why are you giving me your favorite thing?
Yes.
And they will say, because I'm not going to need it anymore. And that in itself is a conversation starter. Why won't you need it anymore? Because where I'm going, I don't need it. Where are you going? And that starts the conversation. And so look out for those little signs, the things that they say, if you miss me, I'm leaving this for you. So, we had a parent tell us once of her daughter who took her life. And the daughter went out and got a puppy and gave it to the dad. And the dad said, why are you getting me a puppy? And she said, No, because when you miss me, at least you'll have the puppy. And initially, as parents, we think, oh, okay, maybe when she goes away with her friends on the weekend or
Mm.
when she's away, at least I won't miss her as much. And then only later on did they realize that she meant by being away, she meant when I'm not here anymore. So those are the little signs that we need to look out for. And unfortunately, if you look at the stats, 75% of people who have taken their life have told someone. But
That's
it's so it's said in a conversation and it's said in passing, and then we don't realize what's happening. And then only later on when the suicide has occurred, we realize, she said this, she did that, she
mm.
gave this away. And so we just need to be, you know, I often say that the one thing we do and comes so naturally to us is when you say hello, the next thing automatically, how are you? I'm fine, thanks. How are you? It's just so natural. But
Mm.
we should be able to, when you ask somebody, how are you? Ask it in such a way that you are asking them, but how are you really? And I want to know, how are you really? Because often people that are feeling depressed or suicidal don't want to burden somebody else with their problems because it already feels like so much of a burden to themselves. And so I think we just need to be more aware when we ask somebody, how are you? We need to really commit to what that answer is going to be and invest in that answer and offer some sort of support.
That 75% statistic you just mentioned, that's a very scary statistic to think about how people have actually said something in that way, but we're not that aware around us of what people are saying, and we just need to be a bit more aware of what others are saying to us and actually listening to them.
So, I mean, it's not, it's when I'm saying 75%, it's not someone that has come to you and said, I'm going to take my life.
Yes.
It's that person that has said, I just don't want to be here anymore. I can't do this anymore. I don't know why this keeps happening to me. Um, I'm tired. I'm tired of this life. And we take it because all of us talk about being stressed all the time. And so we just take it in as part of the conversation and carry on. But if you are noticing them saying things like that, and then there are changes in their behavior, and this is a person that used to be so social before and now suddenly doesn't want to have any interaction with people socially, you need to look at those small signs.
Definitely. And for someone who might be listening right now and who might be struggling, what's a simple action they can take right now or today that can start their journey towards healing?
So if you are someone that is struggling, you yourself is someone that is struggling, acknowledge that you are struggling and acknowledge that it's okay to struggle. Um, you know, all these little challenges in our life are stepping stones to our success. And if you acknowledge that there's a problem, then we can actually find a solution. So number one, if you are struggling with something, acknowledge it and let's find a way to get help. If you are a loved one of someone who is struggling, ask those questions. Are you okay? Is there anything I can do? But mention to them, I have noticed, you used to love going out every Saturday with us. For the last month, you haven't come out with us.
Mm.
You used to love listening to music. You don't listen to music anymore. You used to laugh and joke all the time. Suddenly, you are very sad and tearful. I have noticed this. Is there something you would like to talk about? Is there a way that I can help you? So ask those questions. And if you're someone that's struggling for help, you also struggling with a mental illness, you also need to ask. You need to ask for help.
That's right. And Roshni, for our last question of you today, what are some of the hopeful messages you'd like to share with families and friends who may be worried about someone they care for?
I think the first message is that remember that there is help, there is hope. That's what the South African
Mm.
Depression and Anxiety Group is here for, to show you that there are ways. In our call center, we counsel, and when you are feeling comfortable enough to take the next step, we then refer you on. So we have an extensive referral system. So regardless of where you are calling us from in South Africa, we can tell you where your nearest clinic is, where your nearest hospital is. And so that also takes out a lot of the admin in trying
Yes.
to find help because already you feel so overwhelmed and you don't know what the next step is. And so for us to give you back that power in getting your mental health back in check, we can tell you what those resources are. And so I think number one, it's okay to not be okay. Number two, your feelings are so valid, but also you matter, your life matters. And so reach out for that help. Call someone at SADAG, speak to a family member, and let us try and get you that help to feeling better.
That's great. Well, Roshni, thank you so much for your insights and just putting up that message out there to be aware around you, to it's okay not to be okay. I really do hope that anyone and everyone listening to this podcast takes a better look at those around them and listen to those around them so that we can prevent these instances from happening in the future.
That's absolutely correct. Everyone, just keep your eyes, hearts, everything open. Just be kind and be compassionate because we never know what somebody else is going through.
That's very true. You just never know. But again, thank you so much, Roshni. And to all our listeners out there, we will post the links to the South African Depression Anxiety group here. If you have any thoughts or want to reach out, please reach out to Roshni or to myself, and we will point you in the direct direction. And we will catch you on the next episode of Healthy Talks. Thank you so much, Roshni. Have a good day.
Thank you so much, Julie.